It began just after the storm, when the rain had stopped but the wind still spoke in whispers. Deep in the undergrowth, something raw pierced through the song of dripping leaves. A sharp, helpless cry, too young to be brave and too alone to be ignored. The trees, centuries old and wise, leaned toward the sound, uncertain. Something unnatural was unraveling in the order of the wild. She had not been born for this kind of solitude. The tiny bobcat, not more than a few weeks old, had fur like dusk and eyes too large for her face. Her legs trembled as she stood beneath a crooked pine, calling for a mother who had long vanished. Whether taken by predator, hunter, or fate, no one could say. The forest, ever watchful but never sentimental, offered no comfort. Predators circled in silence, but did not strike. Something in her voice held back even the hunger of coyotes. It was not just a cry for safety, it was the aching voice of something broken too soon. Her sound carried in waves, bending branches, turning heads. A single note of pain so deep, it felt like an echo from something older than time. Birds stopped mid-flight, a fox paused, ears tilted, and somewhere farther down the slope, in a forgotten clearing, a blind dog lifted his head. He could not see the light breaking through the leaves. He could not see the bobcat or the desperate hunger of her eyes. But he heard her, or perhaps more than that. He felt her, the way you feel thunder through your ribs before you hear it in your ears. But for now, she remained alone, curled against the belly of a fallen log, crying into the leaves, hoping for something she had never seen, only sensed, the presence of another heartbeat, steady enough to believe in. The forest listened, and for once, waited. There are kinds of loneliness that even time cannot smooth. The kitten, unnamed and untethered, did not know what to do with her own silence when the cries stopped echoing. She would call, then wait, then curl into herself as if trying to vanish. Hunger gnawed at her belly, but that was not the wound that cut the deepest. It was the invisible tear between her and the world. She was too young to hunt, too proud to beg. A paradox of nature, built to be fierce but born into helplessness. She stumbled through the days, scratching at bark, licking dew off stone. She didn't understand that she was being watched, not just by animals, but by people. A woman had glimpsed her through a trail cam. Volunteers spoke of rescuing her. But the bobcat was not ready to be touched by anything human. Her soul, though young, remembered a wilder song. Sometimes she would climb the rocks and stare across the valley, as if waiting for something to return. Her tail twitched in sleep, chasing shadows that never came. Some nights the wind carried the smell of her mother. Or maybe it was just her heart, imagining what it longed for. She buried her cries under layers of stubborn breath, learning how to survive, but not yet how to live. Then came the frost, a cruel cold that didn't bite, but lingered. Her cries returned, not of fear, but confusion. Why was she here, while others were not? Why did her small body still breathe? The forest did not answer. The stars above blinked silently, as if watching a play they'd seen 1,000 times before. And just when the silence had grown unbearable, just when her tiny body trembled not from cold, but from the weight of invisibility, she heard something. Not a growl, not a bird, something slower, rhythmic, a step, a scent, a presence. She did not move. The trees held their breath, and from the shadows stepped the blind dog. He came like a whisper wrapped in fur, not fast, not threatening, but there was a weight to his steps, a gravity. His coat was patchy, worn from seasons of wandering. His face bore the scars of choices he didn't regret, but it was his eyes, clouded and unmoving, that told the truth. He didn't need sight to see. He felt the world, like some ancient oracle whose vision had turned inward. The bobcat hissed. Instinct demanded it. She was, after all, a wild thing. But there was no force behind it, no hunger for violence. It was defense for the sake of form. The dog didn't respond. He didn't bare his teeth or turn away. He simply stopped, head slightly tilted toward her, as if he were listening to something no one else could hear. He laid down slowly, his bones folding like tired branches. The air between them was charged, not with fear, but with something stranger. Recognition. She circled him once, cautious. Every fiber of her body told her to run, but some strange magnet in her heart pulled her closer. He was no threat. He was no savior. He was just there. Hours passed, The wind changed, the light shifted, and still he did not move. It was a kind of offering, a kind of surrender. He wasn't here to fix her, he was here to witness her. And in that stillness, something inside the kitten loosened. She curled nearby, close enough to flee if she needed to. But she didn't. They shared that night in silence, two broken things tied together by a thread of unseen trust. The forest watched, silent and curious. No one could explain it. Not the biologists, not the locals, but something ancient stirred in the soil where they lay. The kind of meeting that rewrites the rules of the wild. They met again the next morning. The kitten returned hesitantly, eyes cautious, paws delicate over damp earth. The blind dog was already there, seated like a stone that time had forgotten. He did not rise to greet her. He never did. His stillness was his welcome, his breath slow and steady like an unspoken prayer. She circled once more, less defensive now, more curious. Her small body brushed the edge of his fur, and when he didn't flinch, she settled just inches away. There was no touching, no noise, just breath and warmth and presence. It was as though they had signed a contract in silence. You will not abandon me, and I will not ask you to change. Days passed like this, slow and sacred. The kitten no longer cried, not because her pain was gone, but because she had found something steadier than relief, companionship. He could not see her, but he knew her scent, the beat of her paws, the whisper of her fur against the grass. He adjusted to her rhythms. She adjusted to his gravity. Two creatures bound by something neither could name. People came and went. Hikers caught glimpses. Some left scraps of food, unsure if they were witnessing something magical or merely accidental. Trail cameras flickered. Experts speculated, but no one could explain it. Why a predator would choose the company of a canine. Why a blind dog would return, day after day, to a creature with claws. But those who lingered long enough felt it, like air gone still before a storm. This was not instinct. This was devotion. They became a ritual of the forest, a whisper on the trails. The kitten, once frail and desperate, grew stronger under his quiet mentorship. She hunted better, slept deeper, trusted more. And though he never sought her out, never led, never barked, he was always where she needed him to be, a shadow who brought light. Their bond became a rhythm, like dawn following darkness. She would arrive first some days, pawing the earth, scanning for his shape in the clearing. Other days he would be waiting already, still as a statue with ears perked toward the song of her steps. They did not play, they did not fight, they coexisted, but not in the way animals usually do. They kept each other whole. She would groom herself beside him, and he would listen to the wind. Sometimes she brought him scraps, half of a squirrel, a small bird. He never ate, but he accepted the gift. Other times she curled against his ribs during the colder nights. She was wild, yes, but with him, her defenses softened, her claws dulled by proximity, her breath slowed by trust. When the volunteers finally approached, trying to coax her into safety, she hissed and backed behind the dog, not out of fear, but loyalty. He didn't protect her with teeth or growls. He simply was, and that was enough. Enough to make her feel seen in a world that often forgets the small, the broken, the inconvenient. They became symbols, not of taming, but of understanding, the kind of connection that exists beyond logic or words. He did not need her to be less wild. She did not need him to be more whole. In their separate wounds, they had built a shared sanctuary, not a home, something deeper, a sacred pause from the world's noise. But no ritual, no matter how pure, can stop time. The dog was aging. His body tired faster, his breaths came slower. Yet still he came, each day, as if drawn not by habit but by promise. A promise only the soul can keep. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind with gray skies and wind that forgets to move. The bobcat came as usual, ears flicking, tail low, steps sure. But the clearing was empty, the earth undisturbed, no paw prints, no scent, just silence. A new, unfamiliar kind of silence. A silence not of peace, but of absence. She waited, an hour, two, dusk fell like ash. Still, no sign. She paced in tight circles, letting out a soft cry, a sound she hadn't used in weeks. It was smaller now, not a wail, just a question. But there was no answer. only the trees creaking in stillness and the moon rising like a slow, indifferent witness. The next day she returned, and the next, and again. The trail cameras caught her sitting in the center of the clearing, perfectly still, eyes open, ears alert, waiting. Some said she was mourning, others said she didn't understand. But those who had watched closely knew the truth. She understood too well, and that was the real weight she carried. No one found the dog, no body, no trail, just faint paw prints leading east, vanishing into a fog that never lifted. It was as if the earth itself had swallowed him gently, the way one might tuck away a story too beautiful to explain. The bobcat stopped searching eventually, but she never stopped returning, and in that place where two strangers had once sat in silence, a new story took root. One without answers, one without ending. The forest had witnessed it, and through the kitten's presence, it remembered. The days turned to weeks. The bobcat stopped crying, not because she had forgotten, but because grief had reshaped her into something quieter, something watching. She no longer looked for the blind dog with desperation. Instead, she honored him with her stillness. She sat where he had sat, faced the wind as he had faced it, listened, as if waiting for a voice beneath the silence. Something changed in her. Those who watched noticed it. The way she moved through the forest, no longer frantic, no longer just surviving. There was grace now, a reverence. She climbed higher, hunted smarter. She no longer seemed like a kitten. She had crossed a threshold, and though no one could say exactly when, it was clear she had become something more than wild. She had become awake. Then, one cold morning, just as frost silvered the leaves, she froze. Her ears perked, her body tensed, but not in fear. Something moved behind her, a step, a shift of air. She turned sharply, eyes wide, not with panic, but with impossible hope. The camera footage later showed only wind, just trees moving. But the way she tilted her head, the way she stood for minutes unmoving, told another story. Was it the dog? Had he returned? Or was it his scent? His echo? Or had her soul simply conjured the sound she needed to hear? No one can say. But when she moved again, she did not run. She walked with purpose, as if whatever message she had received, it had filled her with a peace too large for words. And though she left the clearing for days at a time, she always came back. Always alone, yes, but never again lonely. Because when you are truly seen, truly known, even in silence, something in you remains tethered to the one who saw you, even after they vanish. Time moved forward, indifferent. Seasons turned their pages. The kitten grew into a powerful, agile young bobcat, muscle beneath elegance, predator beneath grace. But even as she roamed her widening world, she never strayed far from the clearing. It had become more than a meeting place. It was a memory etched into earth, a shrine to a bond that defied all nature's rules. There were no markers, no stone, no flowers, no carved names. Only the pattern of paw prints that returned in spirals each week. Sometimes visitors to the woods would see her there, poised like a sentinel, staring into the nothing. They called it strange, but to those who understood grief and love, it was sacred. She never bonded with another creature again. Not like that. She lived as the forest intended, fierce, solitary, untamed. But something had been sown inside her, a blueprint of empathy, a language of patience. And the way she moved through the world, it carried traces of the dog's wisdom, of his stillness, of his invisible guidance. Sometimes the forest whispers their story, the old dog and the wild cat, the eyes that could not see and the soul that had never been held. A tale not about saving, but about being. Not about domestication, but transformation. A lesson only the wild could teach, that healing doesn't always come from strength. Sometimes it arrives in the form of quiet company. The forest never speaks in sentences, only symbols. And in that silent space between a blind dog and a crying kitten, a miracle unfolded. Not in roaring drama, but in stillness, in waiting, in presence. In a world that runs from pain, they sat with it, together. If this story moved something in you, subscribe for more cinematic tales where the soul meets the wild. Let these moments remind us, the world is still full of quiet magic. Comment this affirmation below. Even in silence, love lingers. Some bonds are written in fur and breath, in absence and return. And the forest, it remembers them all.